What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MMA meeting. Let's Talk with Weasel podcast, where we talk all things MMA. And I hope you guys are having an amazing day under these quarantine times. Now, I thought there was going to be no MMA news, but Jon Jones is like, I got you, fam. Goes into his car, pulls out a gun, and causes headlining news that he gets arrested. The police were responding to a gunshot, and they saw Jon Jones inside of his car. There's actually body cam footage you can see. So Jones is sitting in his car. They asked him if he drank. He did. Definitely seem a bit under the influence. They found a bottle of Jorge Masvidal's alcohol behind the passenger seat, and it was only a quarter full. I believe the police said that they saw some marijuana on him. He had a gun under his seat. It was loaded. I think Errol Helwani said that there was a bullet casing that was fired also in the car. I don't know what's with Jon Jones. I just don't know. Like, especially during this whole coronavirus thing and everybody staying inside, I don't see how Jon Jones is going to be, like, sane. I don't know how he's going to keep it together. He's already getting in trouble with the law. I mean, how many times is this already? 3, 4 times he has gotten arrested. Now, credit, this doesn't seem as bad as some of the other ones, but I just hope he doesn't keep getting in trouble to the point where they're not going to give any more chances. Daniel Cormier is pretty much right. I won't say he's rotten to the core, but he makes such bad decisions. It's crazy. And a lot of people gave him the leniency that he was young. Young guys make mistakes. He's 30 years old now. Yeah, he's still young, but he's at that age now where you usually learn your mistakes, especially if you've been living so fast like Jones. Jones may be 30, but how fast he's been living his life. He's actually like 40, 45 years old. You know what I'm saying? And he's still making these mistakes. I hope this just doesn't carry on further. I mean, I think he has a wife, he has kids, he has a lot of people riding on him. He's getting older, he's not in that young phase anymore, and he just keeps letting people down. And the funniest thing about this is he actually tweeted like 7 days ago something in the neighborhood to help the human race. All we gotta do is sit in front of the TV. How can we mess this up? 1 week later, he goes and gets arrested by shooting a gun, apparently, allegedly, shooting a gun while he's intoxicated in his car, and he had no proof of insurance as well. Cars might be Jon Jones' biggest weakness. I mean, you guys ask me, what is the biggest hole in Jon Jones' game? It's cars, man. Any lawful official in MMA or outside of it, they seem to be the ones that are always defeating Jon Jones. Cars, USADA, and the Albuquerque police. Those are the guys defeating Jon Jones. Or you could just say Jon Jones is his own worst enemy. And a lot of people still see that same thing where he's smiling, he's quoting the Bible a lot, he's trying to be this nice guy, but he makes worse mistakes than most fighters in the UFC. His demeanor has never really changed that much. He still gives that same kind of vibe he did when he was like 24, 25 years old. It's almost like a dark feeling. Like, people want to say he's a sociopath. I do not think he's a sociopath. I don't think he's anything close to that. But there's like a darker essence in his demeanor, you know what I'm saying? When he's trying to be all nice and goody two-shoes, you could see there's something under there still. You know, you could still see there's going to be some bad decisions made. And I've been seeing a lot of people correlate this to the Conor McGregor situations, punching the guy in the bar, jumping at the cage, pushing refs, throwing dollies at buses. This is why you don't hold every MMA fighter or just celebrity in general as a moral high ground, you know what I'm saying? Just talking about it across the board, right? There are some celebrities and fighters, just like anybody else, any human being, there are good people and there are bad people in every single field. I don't explicitly look at the fighters for some kind of moral standard. And it just turns out, man, Jon Jones just cannot get out of trouble. Whatever it is, this is how many chances already? How many times does he have to face that judge? Does he have to face the people he has hurt? And also, maybe even more importantly, face himself in the mirror every single time he makes these mistakes. Can you even call it a mistake anymore when you keep repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again? It becomes a habit, right? It's not even a fine line. There's a hard line you can see in the dirt where you can see a mistake become a habit. Usually it's very easy to prevent that. For Jon Jones' case, get a driver, man. Get a buddy. Get a good, positive person in your life who will call you out on the garbage things you do and the garbage way you think. Those are the real friends in your life. A lot of these athletes, a lot of these celebrities in general, they just do not have the right people around them. Constantly, you see a lot of mistakes and you see a lot of bad habits from these people. It's because they have too many yes men. Too many people are afraid to call them out. And I don't even know why people are like that in general. Especially today where things are a lot more sensitive now. When you call your friend out on something, it becomes personal. And they want to detach you away from the friendship. But no, when people call you out, it means that they care. And number 2, it shows their emotional intelligence when it comes to friendships, companionships. It's a very healthy thing to have. Right? Personally, with my friends, if I do something foul, I want them to call me out. It's exactly what I do to everybody. I do it to everybody I know. Thankfully, my friends and family are not the kind of people that will call me a hater if I call them out on some of their bull, you know? I mean, like 4 or 5 years ago, Dude, I was hanging out with a bunch of friends, for an example. We used to go out every day during the summer. And for some reason, the longer I became friends with them, they wanted to fight people. Like, it was weird. And most likely because I trained, and also my cousin used to hang out with us as well, and he used to box. So it was so uncomfortable. Almost every single place we started to go out toward the end of the summer, hey, let's go fight these guys. Like, some of my friends wanted to go out and fight others. It was just terrible decision making. And me and my cousin both called them out every time they did it. Every single time they either thought about it or they talked about it, because they would literally look at me and him and say, hey, we should go fight these guys. For an example, we were in this plaza and there was a brawl in front of a hookah lounge in the plaza. I was with my friend alone. It was just me and him, and we were going to leave. We were going to drive out of the parking lot, and he wants to go and park his car, and then he says to me, hey, let's jump in there. I literally looked at him and I told him, if you jump out of this car and you get yourself involved in that, you're on your own, man. I told him that because I knew if he thought I didn't have his back, he would not have fought. And that's exactly what happened. We drove away. And that was one of the last times I've ever spent time with him. Now, thankfully, even that person, after I said that, they didn't hold me as some hater, which is a very good quality that everybody should have. If someone calls you out for some dumb thing you do or some dumb thing you say, they're not a hater. They're the opposite. They are your supporter. Jon Jones, that's what he needs. He needs that friend in his life. If his friend sees Jon Jones drinking and he's going to go in his car, take his keys away. Don't let him get in his car. Something like that. You gotta help the guy out. But it looks like he has so many yes men that want to just kiss his ass pretty much the entire time because he's famous and he has money. Those are the people you don't want in your life. Those are the people that drag you down. Look at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson got destroyed because of people like that around him. But to Mike Tyson's credit, he didn't know better because of the way he was brought up, because of the way he used to live when he was young. And also, let's talk about this. What's going to happen to Jon Jones? Is he going to get suspended? Is he going to get stripped? I doubt it, looking at the usual methods the UFC goes by whenever one of their fighters commits some kind of crime. They don't usually strip them. They don't usually suspend them. And contrary, they actually promote it a little bit when it comes to their next fight. You can't blame the UFC too much for doing that because it is a big opportunity to make money, and that's what they're pretty much in the business to do, especially with Endeavor taking over the business. Most likely in it to make as much money as possible. There's a lot of talent, a lot of potential for the sport, the organization. And just like they did for Jon Jones when he fought Daniel Cormier the second time, look at that promo. They covered all of Jon Jones' previous criminal activity, or every single time he broke the law. They brought it right into the promo, and it made an amazing promo out of it. They probably focus a little bit too much on that and not so much on what Daniel Cormier has done, the good things he has done. Daniel Cormier is a good guy. He looks like a very good human being. He's a very busy guy. He fights, he trains, and he does that commentating job, and he's an analyst, and he still has time to give it to the youth, give it to the kids. He seemed to be a great father, seems to be a great husband, overall really good person, but I would have liked in the promo, just like they covered the bad parts of Jon Jones, they should have covered more of the good parts of Daniel Cormier and made it almost like a good guy versus bad guy situation. But how many times is enough? Are they going to reward Jon Jones with more promotion, more money, because his next fight is going to be big no matter what? Whenever fighters, it's crazy to think about it, whenever fighters go through something like this, whenever they break the law and they get their next fight, everybody wants to watch it because now a lot of people want to see that guy lose, right? So I expect Jon Jones' next fight to be pretty big, man, no matter who it's going to be against. Now, if they go on and strip him, of course they have to have Dominick Reyes versus Thiago Santos for the undisputed title. And it's not even that big of a deal because most of us already believe that Jon Jones lost to Dominick Reyes. If he just goes on and gets the belt, nobody's going to say, oh, Dominick Reyes doesn't deserve it. Only some people obviously will, but Dominick Reyes gets the belt. Let's say he beats Thiago Santos. Can anybody say he's a fake champion? I guess because the official decision said that Jon Jones won. But in everybody's eyes, looking at the flawed criteria and judging, and not just that, the flawed perspective and lack of intelligence of the judges, no, I'll go on and say Dominick Reyes is the true champ. If Thiago Santos goes and beats Dominick Reyes, I believe he's the true champ as well, because I also think Thiago Santos defeated Jon Jones, or at least made a very close call on changing that decision to his side. And if he goes on and beats the guy that controversially lost to Jon Jones, he's the guy. He's the man of the division, 100%. So they can go on and strip Jones and give it to the next guy. And I think the division rolls on really well. And that would be an amazing fight, man. Really good fight. Maybe Dominick Reyes' wrestling would be the deciding factor because he is a pretty good offensive wrestler when he wants to go to it. He is a lot better with his hands. He's a bit longer and taller. The power probably goes to Santos. The speed goes to Santos for sure. And the explosiveness, unpredictability goes to him. But he attacks in straight lines. Dominick Reyes switches off with those angles like he did even to Jon Jones and caught him because of it. It might be pretty hard for Thiago Santos to catch Dominick Reyes with some of those blitz. But the leg kicks should should be really working for Thiago Santos. The spinning kicks especially, they are going to be in opposite stances, so the kicking of Thiago Santos is going to be key in that fight. Should be amazing. But do you know who seems to be having a really good time? That is Mike Perry. Did you guys see the video? It's an older video of him knocking out some scrub. It might be outside a club or something like that. He hits this guy with a left hook, puts him out cold before he hits the ground. Now, I don't know what happened. There's no video footage of what happened to cause this. But on Mike Perry's account, this guy started the trouble with him. He supposedly punched him before they started the video. And what tells me is that guy, the scrub, is the one that started this all. Number one, Mike Perry's backing up, right? He's backing away, and the other guy's walking forward. The guy, the way he's walking, doesn't look like he has the best balance to him. He might be drunk a bit. Man, that was a quick left hook. And then with that Frazier, and the guy just saw smoke. And I gotta tell the guy, man, if you're gonna start something, if you're gonna walk up to, especially a guy with cauliflower ears, if he has cauliflower ears, you have to know the guy knows something. You know, he didn't get cauliflower ears for no reason unless he's some of those guys back in like 2005 who were punching themselves in the ear to create them. The guys cauliflower ears probably do not start something or approach him. And number two, when you do get in front of him and this tattooed guy with cauliflower ears with his girlfriend, pretty well dressed as well, it seems like, if he starts taking a stance, I actually don't know about the outfit, but if he takes a stance in front of you, why are you still standing there? You have your hands down, you're looking at him. Man, I wish I could do my Street Fight breakdown videos again, because this would definitely be on one of them. It just shows you, man, don't get in fights. Most people in the world do not know how to fight. Fighting is a skill. I understand it correlates with anger, and that's why a lot of these people who shouldn't be fighting actually get into fights. But at the end of the day, people have to know it's a skill, and you should not be doing it if you're not good at it, except if it's self-defense. People who are not good at chess usually are not going to play chess. People who are not good at basketball usually don't play basketball. People who are not good at acting usually don't act. You know, it just goes across the board with a lot of things. There is no other activity that is more participated in by the inexperienced than fighting. Period. There are more inexperienced and uneducated people who participate in fights than any other activity on earth. I don't know if it's 100% fact, but I put anything on that, you know? It's just craziness. And when that happens, when those people try to get in fights, this is what happens when you meet someone who actually knows what they're doing. It takes one punch and it's all over. You don't even know how to take a stance. If you don't know how to get in a stance or you don't know when to get in a stance, you probably should never be fighting. Man, this quarantine stuff is playing with my head a little bit. I'm not used to getting locked in this long. It's been like 3 weeks since I haven't even left my house. And I want to just go work out. You know, I want to like get this energy out somehow. I'm running a lot. I mean, it's been my biggest workout. It's been the most refreshing thing I've been doing is just going out and run a couple miles every day. But it's just not enough because how long does it take to run 2 miles? No more than like 17 minutes. So for the rest of the day, I'm just in my house making videos and playing video games. That's it. That's usually what I do in my off time. But because I have so much free time now, I'm playing video games more than I'm doing anything else right now. I mean, I might be a pro gamer in like 2 weeks from now for the amount of time I'm putting in each day into this PS4 and PC. Okay, but let's get to the questions here. Oh, they actually added the reply feature to these questions. So yeah, a lot of you guys were asking me before, like, is there a way you can have us reply to the question? I couldn't do it. I looked all over. I tried for hours. I couldn't find a way to do it. But I guess YouTube just added it in. We're going to go to the most liked question. We're going to start with Mufasa Trump. What Bible quote will John post on Twitter now that he's been arrested for the 87th time? I don't know, maybe something like Matthew 6:14 and 15. He'll put the picture of the quote and in caption say, "You have to forgive me." He can even go Philippians 4:13, like his tattoo says, that he could do all things through Christ, but it's not the right thing to do. Jones probably pointed at his tattoo. No, I could do all things through Christ. All things? Steroids? Cocaine? All that? All things. Jones probably took that quote to the absolute extreme to justify all the dumb things he does. And then we go to Main G Mutt. Do you think the new generation of highly skilled, lifelong martial artists will lead to much more point fights and strategic fights rather than your high-paced, just bleed fights of the past? With less finishes overall lately, how does the sport evolve from here? Thanks, Weasel. I don't necessarily think so. I can understand making a connection to boxing, right? As boxing got more skilled and more technical, boxers became a lot more safe. Now, that is not going to happen in MMA for a long time because it's a lot easier to be defensive in boxing. For the main reason, you have two targets, the head and the body, and you have two hands with big gloves. And boxing's been around for over 100 years. Defense has been picked up and learned for over 100 years. And it's only one style, pretty much. There's like sub-styles under the boxing name, but the general style is boxing. MMA is different. Again, you can bring countless different martial arts. Even if you have all the defense to boxing, let's say in MMA, you still gotta work on your karate. You still gotta work on your Muay Thai. Next thing you know, when all these guys have the defense up on boxing and Muay Thai and wrestling and jiu-jitsu, all of a sudden, you're gonna see this Taekwondo master come in and start kicking people's heads off because they never even learned that before. They never learned the defense of Taekwondo. It's way different than any other martial art. So it's a lot harder for MMA to be on that same level of boxing where it comes to the defensive mindset of the sport. And even if it does get to that level, I expect it taking a very, very long time. I'm talking about decades from now before it gets to the point where it's a lot of point fighting. And back then, everybody was a lot more reckless and everybody was a lot more one-dimensional. But there's still a lot of finishes today. A lot of finishes. But I will also say this one thing. When you see knockouts today, they're usually a lot more brutal than ever before. A lot more brutal and a lot more flashy and just spectacular. I mean, look at Yair Rodriguez knocking out Korean Zombie. Look at Francis Ngannou's uppercut. Look at the spinning heel kick knockouts. You didn't see any of this stuff before. Right before, it was just straight right hand knocked you out. Big looping haymakers knocked you out. Now you're seeing these precise, high volume, quick rotating attacks that are just putting people senseless, which makes fighters a lot more dangerous. And also, because of that, a lot more dangerous to approach. So you do see more of a defensive attitude to everything. But I don't see it being that kind of point fight sport that some may be anticipating. Harun Lari says that some of the best fights actually went to a decision, which is true. The best fights have mostly gone to a decision. And again, there's no way you can say that today is just so point fighty, it's so boring. We just saw Zhang Wei Li versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, one of the greatest fights of all time. We saw Israel Adesanya versus Kelvin Gastelum. We're constantly seeing these fights. Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald is arguably, in a lot of people's minds, not everybody, but a lot of people's minds, the greatest fight that has ever happened in MMA. And that's way past the Just Bleed era. Way past it. Actually, I will go on and say most of the best fights happened way after the Just Bleed era. Hendo versus Shogun. Look at Diego Sanchez versus Gilbert Burns. That was a Just Bleed fight. That fight belonged in that era. But it happened years past that. Almost like a decade past that. You know what I'm saying? And that just shows the progression. It's not going to get to that alarming DEFCON 1 state where people just find the sport boring. I personally don't think it'll ever happen in our lifetime. There's too many skills, there's too much to learn, there's too many martial arts, there's too many things that are coming up that are new in those specific martial arts. Look at how much BJJ has evolved. How much it changed. Look at how MMA fighters utilize Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. It's way more flashy now, more submission oriented, rather than back then it was a lot more slow-paced positional work. BJJ has gotten more exciting over the years. So you can even say that fights are just going to get more exciting to watch. More strategic, definitely, because the fighters get more intelligent as time goes on, but it can also be way more entertaining. Personally, for me, I've been watching fights for a very long time. And I'll say now, as well as the golden era, were the best times to watch MMA. When you had all the dominant champions in every division, Cain Velasquez, Jon Jones, Anderson Silva, GSP, Frankie Edgar, and Benson Henderson were like changing up, Jose Aldo and Dominick Cruz. That was such a great time to watch MMA, in my opinion. And now is the other time, right? Starting from like 2015 till now, might be the greatest time in MMA history, and it's still going on. Look at Dominick Cruz versus Jon Jones. You cannot say you were not entertained by that fight, especially because the undefeated Jon Jones almost got beaten, and a lot of people's eyes did get beaten for the first time. The skill level is just skyrocketing, man. It's growing so quickly. Look at guys like Sean O'Malley. Joe Rogan, for an example, is blown away by how good Sean O'Malley is when it comes to his striking. His kicks, he said, is that of like an experienced Taekwondo fighter. Even though Sean O'Malley has never done martial arts his entire career before he went into MMA. It blows those older guys like Joe Rogan's minds away, right? Because they're used to watching those older Mirko Krokop and Vanderlei Silva and other martial arts in different sports where you need like 10 years at least in those martial arts to get anywhere, even in MMA. But you have guys like Sean O'Malley and Francis Ngannou who just come into the martial arts scene and blowing away everybody's expectations. And they've only been doing it for like 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 years, not even in a specific martial art, just MMA in general. And they're already looked at as the future of MMA. It's crazy. Watch the kids after this. Watch 20 years from now. When I'm 45 years old, You're gonna see these kids, man. It's gonna be like ninjas. They're gonna make Tony Ferguson look like a turtle. They're gonna make Yair Rodriguez look like some beginner parkour kid. You know, these guys are gonna be like flipping off the cages and crazy stuff that you would even expect. It's already happening in BJJ. Eddie Bravo talks about all the time. These break dancers are entering the scene in grappling, and they are just dominating in the training room. They're picking it up so quick. Again, an older guy like Eddie Bravo, it's blowing away his mind of what he thinks, how fast someone has to progress in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to ever get anywhere. These guys are coming into the scene 1 year in, 1 year of training, and they're already submitting guys who are like at least 5 years into grappling. Crazy. I'm so excited for the future of the sport, man. I'm so excited. You guys don't even know. For an example, this. Back when Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture were fighting and exchanging the light heavyweight belt, what if you would have gone to some of those guys back then? If you went up to Joe Rogan and Randy Couture and some of the other commentators and some of the other personalities of the sport and told them, you know, one day we're going to have people jumping off the cage and knocking people down with head kicks. You know, one day we're going to see double flying knees. You know, we're actually going to see Imanari rolls. They would think you're crazy. That stuff is for movies, man. That stuff will never work. They thought front kicks were for movies. They thought front kicks were for movies. Go back and watch how crazy Joe Rogan reacted to Anderson Silva's front kick. Like he's never seen it before, or he never expected it to work in MMA. Everybody throws a front kick now. Everybody. It's so normal. What was thought crazy back then to throw is normal today. People are jumping off cages now, and you don't even see people reacting that much to it. Like, oh yeah, he jumped out the cage. We've seen that before. But when Anthony Pettis dropped Benson Henderson with the Showtime kick, everyone went bananas about it. Everyone went insane about it. It went all over the internet. Even how limited the internet was back then, it became a viral sensation. It became something that even today people are practicing in the training room. And that was 2010. That was a little bit more than 9 years ago. And still today, it's played on every highlight reel. People still think it was a knockout win. Just how mind-boggling it was to see it. People still today think that shot had to have knocked out Benson Henderson. But then you go fast forward to Yair Rodriguez, he's like doing somersault kicks and stuff. Like craziness, man, craziness. So some people might think that it's going to get more boring and more focused on point fighting. Man, I see something a lot more exciting, and I see something way more high level in the future. So great question. And then we go to Gayuru Fernando. Is the Johnny Walker hype train completely derailed now? Where does he go from now on? Yeah. His train is pretty much derailed. It was a fun hype train, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to miss that. When he was starching people in like 50 seconds and nobody was able to get past the first round with him. And I say nobody, I mean like 3 people. You have to admit the hype was pretty fun. Sometimes it can cloud our judgment when we see such a dominant champion like Jon Jones. We just hope there's someone out there that can challenge him. So we just grab onto anybody who is doing something entertaining, you know, and doing it successfully. But he went to Firas Zahabi. Everybody thought it was going to fix his problems. He's such a raw material. And if anybody can mold that into something strong and sharp, it's going to be someone like Firas Zahabi, right? He looked a little bit more composed. He looked a little bit more compact with stuff he throws when he fought Nikita Krylov, but it just wasn't enough. His defense is just a giant hole. It just is. I don't know if he could fix it. I don't know what he's going to do from now on. And not just that, Kevin Lee's whole hype train thing got derailed as well. I mean, he had like 3 hype trains. I don't see Kevin Lee making it to a title shot again, to be honest. I don't see Johnny Walker making it to a title shot. I see Kevin Lee being like the next Jeremy Stevens figure without that long resurgence in his career, right? I think this was one of Kevin Lee's resurgences. And I see Johnny Walker even less than that, to be honest. The best guy he beat was Misha Serkunov. And after that, he's just getting outperformed or just stunned, right? Most of his losses are by knockout. He just has too much of a hole in his defense. He's a guy that's always going to be entertaining to watch, but I don't see him making it an inspiring, prestigious accomplishment in the sport, to be honest. He's going to have crazy knockouts. The most I'll give him is going to be like the Edson Barboza of the sport. He's never going to get at that title shot, but maybe later in his career, he might fight a few top contenders and might even stay somewhere in that top 7 space, you know? Having spectacular knockouts, great fights, fun to watch, but not successful and effective enough to be one of the best fighters in the division. And what does he do now? Keep fighting. Train with Firas Zahabi, because here's the bad thing. He left a coach. He's going to leave Firas Zahabi next. He's going to leave 2 coaches. That can play with a fighter's head, man. It might be good if he needs to find the right guy behind him, because behind every great fighter is a great relationship with their coach. And Walker needs that if he ever wants to get anywhere. He needs to stay with a guy he knows has his back and he trusts to get him better. And then we go to Loop Justinian. How much time does it take to develop a good Zhang versus you want to break down when? In all caps. I could probably make it during this time. If you guys still want to see it. If I do it, it's gonna come out next week. And then we go to Gurman Klar. Which fighters in the lightweight division have the best chance of outstriking Conor McGregor in a fight? And also, how do you think Paulo Costa matches up with Izzy? Love your videos and keep up the good work. Thank you so much, man. So, which fighter has the best chance of outstriking Conor McGregor in the lightweight division? I'd probably say Tony Ferguson. I was thinking about Edson Barboza, but Edson Barboza is really bad with pressure. But if you're not grappling with him, if you're not wrestling him, he does have more success like in this Tony Ferguson fight. But again, Conor's going to pressure him. He's going to be very aware of those kicks and just stay in boxing range the entire fight and just tag on the inside of those looping, desperate punches that Barboza throws to break pressure. Tony's a guy that might get knocked out. Let's be honest here. He can get knocked out by Conor McGregor in the first 2 rounds, but what makes him the most compatible in beating Conor McGregor in a striking match throughout 5 rounds is he obviously has a cardio to do it. He's probably the best striker in the division who can go 5 rounds very comfortably. Tony can strike at a fast pace for 5 rounds. Long reach, really good jab. You could disrupt Conor McGregor like Nate Diaz did with that jab. He switches stances as well to take off the angles of Conor McGregor's punches. That's something that Nate Diaz didn't do. He also has the kicks that Nate doesn't throw. He's a better version of Nate Diaz overall across the board, right? Knees, elbows, his clinching, very unpredictable combinations. I can see him overwhelming Conor McGregor. If he doesn't get knocked out in the first 2 rounds because he leaves his chin open sometimes, 100% I believe he would defeat Conor McGregor in a striking match. That jab will disrupt everything Conor McGregor's trying to do. The kicks to the leg as Conor keeps that long stance. The body kick as he switches to orthodox. Push kicks to keep Conor away at his distance. Remember, he's longer than Conor. Conor can't do that same thing like he does to shorter fighters where he baits them in by trapping the lead hand and trying to force out their power hand. Can't do that to Tony Ferguson. He has to get in on this guy. But the dangerous thing about doing that against Tony by trying to make your way inside that range is even if you get in close, he's throwing elbows in your face, right? As you come in on an angle, those elbows, they come from the outside or they come up or down the center. Tony throws every angle in the book with elbows. Nobody really does that. So if Conor's trying to take the outside foot, as let's say Tony Ferguson is an orthodox, that left elbow can cut him right open, man. That left elbow's going to intercept him and cut him open. And there's the other thing. Even if Conor tries to trap the lead hand, Tony's throwing elbows. Okay, look at it like this. If you're on the ground with someone and they have wrist control on you, what is the best way to deliver damage in that position if you're on top, let's say, right? You roll over your arm and land the elbow. That's what Tito Ortiz did to everybody who grabbed his wrists. You could do the same thing on the feet. Conor's trying to take the outside foot. He grabs your wrist to take away your jab, your lead hand. So all you do is you roll over just like you do if you're in someone's guard and you land that elbow. Intercept them as they're on the outside of your foot. And Conor never really wants to be on the center line with Tony Ferguson. Man, those jabs are just going to keep peppering him the entire fight. And every single jab is just going to drain him, right? I believe Conor's way of knocking out Tony Ferguson on the feet is strictly because of something Tony Ferguson did that was so much of a mistake, so much of an error. Like he dove in with an elbow and he ran into a left hand, something like that. That's like the only way I can really see Conor McGregor knocking out Tony Ferguson. He could stun him, he might hit him, rock him a few times, but that kind of damage will only be done, I believe, if Tony does something drastically wrong. So yeah, I'll have to say Tony Ferguson has the best chances of outstriking Conor McGregor. And what do I think of Paulo Costa versus Israel Adesanya? So on my Nightmare Matchup video, some people were asking, where is Paulo Costa for Israel Adesanya's Nightmare Matchup? Well, here's the thing about Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa, I believe, is a guy who would make Israel Adesanya look really good. Remember, styles make fights, right? Paulo Costa marches on straight lines. He does not take angles. He marches down aggressively, and once he gets you to the cage, now he moves left and right only. It's a very one-dimensional way of moving. I'm moving forward or back, or I'm moving left and right, and that's it. I don't move diagonal. I don't know what that is. That is why he got caught by Yoel Romero, got dropped. He got dropped by Uriah Hall for the same reason. Uriah Hall is terribly ineffective when he's pressured. When he's on the cage moving around, he always loses those fights. Even from as early as the Chris Weidman fight to even the Derek Brunson fight, he got knocked out for that reason. Paulo Costa pressured him, did the same thing, make him move around. Uriah Hall can't plant to throw the kicks. His punches become a lot more panicky, still sharp, still fast, but it's very obvious when he throws that straight shot. Paulo Costa ran into, I think it was a jab or something like that, or a straight left, and Paulo Costa just walks into it and gets dropped. And you could correlate that to Israel Adesanya. Adesanya is great moving backwards. He's longer and taller, and maybe even faster than Uriah Hall. He's very composed as well, with a lot more experience in kickboxing of getting backed up constantly. He has seen a guy like Paulo Costa countless times. He's not that unpredictable. like Yoel Romero. He's not as explosive of staying on the outside and darting his way in like Robert Whittaker. He's not a human refrigerator like Kelvin Gastelum, who will run through shots and stay in his face the entire time. Paulo Costa has been dropped twice already in his UFC career. And the other thing is, Paulo Costa does not parry jabs. He has a very hard time getting away from jabs. The reason why you don't see it that often is because he's pressuring the opponent backwards, and his opponents are usually the kind of fighter who throws jabs moving backwards. That's the only reason. When he's in the center of the cage, you see him getting peppered with jabs. I think it was actually by Uriah Hall, if I'm not mistaken, and he just could not get around it. Trying to parry, but they're hitting his face. You don't want that kind of thing with Adesanya, because it's not just, I'm hitting you with jabs when it comes to Adesanya. That might be the thing with Uriah Hall, right? I'm hitting you with jabs and that's it. When you look at Adesanya, and if he's hitting you with jabs, yes, he's creating damage, and yes, he's catching you, and yes, he's getting his distance and timing down and his precision down, but he is already calculating to set you up for something. That's the difference here. If Adesanya hits you with a jab, he's already got something down for you the next time. I'm gonna hit you with a jab and come up with a right high kick. I'm gonna hit you with a jab and do a left question mark kick over your shoulder right behind my jab. There's a lot of things that Adesanya could throw at someone like Paulo Costa that completely confuses him. And I think personally, Paulo Costa, as great as he is, he's an amazing fighter. I see him being a lot of fighters in this division, but I think fighting Israel Adesanya is a really bad fight for him. I think it's a fight that's going to make us all forget what happened with the Adesanya versus Yoel Romero fight, almost like what happened with Anderson Silva, right? Anderson Silva has some boring fights. Damian Maia tells latest. His next performance, he blew the roof off the place, and people forgot about those poor performances. And that's what I think will happen with Adesanya if he fights Paulo Costa, to be honest. I think he knocks out Paulo Costa, and also Paulo Costa has really, really short arms. He throws haymakers a lot. I don't think he's going to reach Adesanya's chin. So great questions. And then we go to David Schexnader. When a fighter throws a kick, they often spin a 360 to reset. How come their opponents never rush in and during this spin to attack? Well, one, it can be pretty hard. It depends how fast they're spinning. The other thing is, when the fighter is spinning after throwing a kick, there's always that cautious that something else is going to come, right? They're spinning, so they might expect a spinning back fist instinctively, a spinning kick instinctively. But yes, I've seen many times where a fighter spins after throwing a kick and the opponent does not engage them when they could have. So in general, it's just a level of danger that they don't know of, right? There's an unknown about when someone's spinning. Do I engage or do I not? What do I do here? You know what I will usually say? If someone is spinning, yes, there could be an opportunity to land a head strike as they're spinning to reset. But what I think is a lot more safe to do is go under for the body shot, throw a kick of your own from long range, or go for a takedown. Don't really go for head strikes because you enter a land of the unknown. You get into a 50-50 fight here because if they're throwing a spinning back fist, they're going to hit you first because they're already in rotation. Yes, the reward is massive, right? Because if you land that big right hand on them, they go out because they're turning their head right into it. But if they catch you first and they're throwing a spinning back fist, you're out. That's just how it goes. I will say, go to the body. You move in. If you see a drastic change in tempo really quickly, you go under for the body shot because they're turning into it, right? So if you can land a crushing body shot to the ribs, they're also exposing the liver area, ribs, all that stuff. Land something hard there, right? You're getting on the inside. And also, if they do throw that spinning back fist, they're going over your head because you ducked under. You'll rarely ever see someone throwing a spinning back fist and aim low. You know, you never see that. They aim it high, you go under it, you catch the body shot, and from there you can clinch up, or you can go up for an uppercut. After a spinning back fist, usually fighters' arms are wide open because of the momentum they have to use with their arms to throw that spinning back fist. So they open themselves up again. The right hand lands, spinning back fist over your head, you come up for the left uppercut, right straight down the center, jab just to keep a distance just in case, you know, if they're getting wild. That's a very safe way to approach it. Another thing is, after they throw a kick, usually, now this isn't always the case, if you're fighting a Taekwondo fighter, change your method probably, because they will double up on their kick. But if it's just some other fighter, and they throw a big round kick and they miss, and they're spinning to reset, you could throw a spinning kick to the body as they're rotating into it. You're both orthodox. You can throw your own right round kick as they're spinning into it if they're southpaw. You probably want to throw a spinning heel kick as they're rotating because they're turning their head into it, and they might not have their eyes on you. That will be an instant knockout 100%. And also, the safety about this is, usually, again, fighters are not going to double up on their kicks. A Taekwondo fighter, maybe a karate fighter, might do that, but usually you don't see that. What they try to do is they try to throw their hands after spinning back fist. Your kick is longer than their arms. You'll catch them from a distance, while their spinning back fist falls short. Now, here's the last thing, the takedown. Pretty much like what I said about going for the body shot. You enter with the jab to measure really quick. You duck in right after you throw it. Jab measure, I'm already going in for the takedown. They're not going to do a thing about it. There's nothing they can do about that. Takedowns will come very easy because when you're spinning around, you're crossing over your feet. Easy takedown. Grab hips, both legs, drag them right to the ground, and usually you'll probably get to their back because they're going to land on all fours. And then we go to Eric Kellgren. If Jones committed fully to a criminal life, could he become like a drug lord or maybe a mafia boss? Seems like he has tremendous skill in criminology. Wait, Jon Jones studied criminal justice in college. What? He didn't graduate, but he studied criminal justice in college. He knows the in and outs when it comes to the enemy of the side, right? So he already knows a little bit about that. He could make it somewhere up there on the criminal life scene. I don't think he would be a mafia boss or drug lord. I think he'll be that guy. He's like the #1 bodyguard, or he's like one of the right-hand men of the mafia boss. You know what I'm saying? He's that guy when the mafia boss invites you to a quote-unquote dinner, but he's really setting you up. It's probably your last day, right? When you enter the room, that dark room with some candles, maybe a lamp in the corner, private server that's ready to serve both of you, and the mafia boss is already sitting on the table, Jon Jones is the guy that's right at the door inside the room, not outside the room. The outside guy, he's not that special. The guy inside the room that's standing next to the door, that guy's special. That's Jon Jones. That's the guy. He's the guy that will answer if anything goes south in the room, right? If you're inside the room, the mafia boss likes you. He trusts you. You're outside the room, you can't stay with us, man. We don't like you. The Stats Life production said Jones is too easily caught to be a drug lord. True, man. Yeah, he can't handle that stuff. He has to be like an enforcer. And then we go to Silent Gaming Elite. When your 2020 Nightmare matchup's coming, so that's done. Number 2, what are your thoughts on Gilbert Burns being only the second man to ever KO Maia? He's not only the second guy to KO Maia, he's the only guy in 11 years to knock out Damian Maia. That's a special thing, especially look at who Damian Maia fought. Let me look at this really quick. Anderson Silva, Mark Munoz, Chris Weidman, Dong Hyun Kim, Rick Story, Rory McDonald, Gunnar Nelson, Matt Brown, Carlos Condit, Jorge Masvidal, Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, Lyman Good, Andy Rocco Martin, Ben Askren, and none of those guys. That is crazy, man. That was all after his loss to Nate Marquardt, 2009, where he got knocked out in 21 seconds. He gets knocked out by Gilbert Burns in 2 minutes and 34 seconds of the first round. Special achievement. And what that showed is Gilbert Burns has dangerous hands that everybody has to respect. Everybody already knows, don't go to the ground with this guy. He's too dangerous, too experienced, too good there. We're going to engage him on the feet, right? That's usually what the game plan would be. He can knock you out like that. I mean, he's had crazy knockouts in the past, but he knocked out Damian Maia with one shot. There's a big reason why I put him as one of the biggest number matchups for Kamaru Usman. I think he beats a lot of guys, man. He's another Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith character. He's a guy at lightweight who didn't make it anywhere. Wins and losses, lost badly, won some good fights. Ultimately just, journeyman. That just seemed like what he was going to be. Goes up to welterweight and just starts putting performances on. So he went up and his first fight was against Alexei Kunchenko. That's a tough fight for your first in the welterweight division, right? Alexei Kunchenko is a very experienced kickboxer, big guy, powerful, fast. Fights him and beats him everywhere it went, pretty much. Fights Gunnar Nelson, beats him pretty much everywhere it goes. Knocks out Damian Maia. I'm really excited for this guy, man. Number 3, rank your favorite champions of all time from each division. Heavyweight would have to be 100% Fedor Emelianenko. Light heavyweight, probably Chuck Liddell. Middleweight, Anderson Silva. Welterweight, Robbie Lawler, 100%. When he was the champion, I wish he never would lose. I wish he would be champion forever. Lightweight, when Anthony Pettis was the champ, I was really happy. He was putting on performances. He was knocking people out, submitting people left and right. He was extremely marketable, and I think he would have been something really special. Featherweight, for sure, Jose Aldo. Bantamweight, I would have said Cody Garbrandt, but man, when he makes those huge mistakes, it's just not fun to watch sometimes. So I'll probably say TJ Dillashaw. Flyweight DJ, obviously. Women's bantamweight, Amanda Nunes, for sure. And women's strawweight, I would say Rose Namajunas. Number 5, how does prime Dominick Cruz do in today's bantamweight division? I think he does pretty well. He's going to have very hard fights because let's be honest about Dominick Cruz's bantamweight career. He didn't have a lot of guys to fight. He has some good guys, but there wasn't a large variety of them, There wasn't a huge pool of talented fighters. So I think he does pretty well, but I think he stays somewhere in like top 5, maybe becomes champion, but I think he will lose it even if he does. Number 6, how do you think the GOATs of every division in their prime would do against the top 10 of every division? I'm going to skip number 6 because that would take a while. I really want to get to some other questions because you had a lot here. Number 7, finally, I have a friend that I'm trying to get into MMA. What would be your best way or method of turning them into a fan? Love your videos, look forward to them all the time. Thank you so much, man. And that's a really good question. So, how to create a fan out of someone who is finally becoming a bit interested in the sport? Everyone's different. I'll show him Anderson Silva. I'll show him the Robbie Lawler versus Warren McDonald fight. But then again, I don't know exactly why they would be a fan. What exactly draws them into it? Is it the wars, the violence, the activity, the technical side of it? I know a lot of people, the action and the violence is what gets them in. There's a great series on YouTube that the UFC put up, and that is like the biggest moments of every year. I will show your friends some of that because it summarizes pretty much everything that's gone on over like the past 10 years. And if they're interested in anything specifically of what they see, and you can explain to them like this guy right here, Anderson Silva, or this guy Conor McGregor, or whoever it is, if you explain how great they were, and if your friend gets interested in anything that happens in those videos, then you know what to really focus on and what to really show them as advice. Like, you like the Rory McDonald versus Robbie Lawler fight? Yo, man, there's a lot of fights like this. And you can give them like the Zhang Wei Li versus Joanna fight that just happened. You can give them Izzy versus Kelvin Gastelum fight. You could show them Dan Henderson versus Shogun Rua and show this is what Robbie Lawler versus Warren McDonald was, but back in the day, right? These are the older guys that went through war like this, and these are legends that did this. So there's many ways you could do it. You just have to know their taste. And that's the great thing about MMA. That's something that a lot of other sports don't really have. A lot of other sports are pretty much the same thing on repeat. MMA in general is different every time. It's different every time. There's something for everybody. When you look at basketball, at least in my eyes, maybe because I'm a normie when it comes to that stuff, but when I look at basketball, everybody's doing the same thing. I can't really tell anybody apart. They do a couple things different here and there, but not drastically different that you can notice with the naked eye. If you just see it once and, oh, well, everyone's doing the same thing. What's so special? Every game looks the same. Someone just gets more points than the other. In MMA, you see so many different wild, obvious techniques are getting thrown. Right? If you look at Yair Rodriguez and you look at Dan Henderson, anybody can see the difference. Anybody. A normie can, a casual fan can. That's what makes MMA so exciting. There's something for everybody. We go to Jason Rascon. What combo of punches do you like to see being thrown during a fight? And which combo is most effective in your opinion? One big one I want to see more is a jab lead hook combo. Such a good combo. So safe to throw and can knock people out. Boxers do it all the time. MMA fighters never do that. They never throw that. I see a couple double left hooks from Zabit, which is great, but jab, left hook, right? If they try to slip inside your jab, left hook is coming, right? It's safe. It's both of the lead hand. You always have your power hand up to protect yourself, and you can always lean away when you're throwing your lead hand. And you can even go to the body, right? If you start going to that with it, they start covering up. Jab to the head, body hook instead. Or you can even go body jab, left hook over the top. Really good combo to throw. And what's the most effective combo? The 1-2-3. Jab, straight, lead hook. And then we go to D. How do you see Dillashaw doing after his time off? And who does he return against? Also, can you see the winner of Khabib Tony drawing GSP back? And who does better against him? Khabib or Tony? And how would Gegard Mousasi do against Adesanya? Dillashaw coming back, it's impossible to know. Because we don't know if he's been doing PEDs his entire career. There's an argument that he only did it to get down to 125, and there's also the argument that he did his entire career because once you get caught, the stigma sticks with you almost forever until you get strictly tested to the point where it's like, okay, they don't do it anymore, a la Chris Cyborg. So how do I see him doing? I can't say. It's impossible. He can come up the same. If he comes back the same way he was, he will be one of the top fighters in the division. If he comes back better, which is a possibility, if he comes out better because he's been training this entire time, he probably will become the champion. Dillashaw's skills are among the best in the bantamweight division. Without PEDs, you just look at his technique and the things he goes for. He is a bit ahead of the pack with a lot of things. Or if he comes out worse because the PEDs have left his body, he's not the same fighter. I see him getting starched by a lot of guys. To be honest, if he doesn't come out the same, I think the decline will be much greater than an incline if he shows up better. And who's he return against? There's a lot of guys. Dominick Cruz rematch, since it seems like Corey Sandhagen and Cruz are not going to be fighting. Marlon Moraes and Petr Yan, loser probably, would be a good one. But that's just the bad part of all this. He's going to be gone for 2 years. And he really has little choice of a tune-up fight. And as competitive as he is, to all the people that talk about how competitive Dillashaw is in the training room, I do not see him wanting a tune-up fight. I see him wanting the best guys right away. I don't know if he has that kind of ring rust. I don't know if he's the kind of guy that shows up from a long layoff and just doesn't perform. No idea. And here's the other thing. If that happens, if he shows up with ring rust, people are automatically going to say it's because the PEDs left his body. 100% I can see it right now. So there's a higher probability that Dillashaw will show up worse than ever before. It might be ring rust or it might be the PEDs leaving his body. And then Khabib versus Tony, can they draw GSP back? Probably, especially if Khabib wins, because GSP has gone on and said that he wants to be the first one to defeat Khabib, right? That's a huge accomplishment. So especially if Khabib beats Tony, he's probably the only guy in the UFC that can draw GSP back into the sport. I don't even think Conor McGregor can do that because GSP's in it for the legacy. And he's talked about it before. He's not too interested in fighting Conor. And who would be a better matchup? I think Tony's a harder fight. Tony's a much harder fight for GSP than Khabib is. Because Khabib cannot handle GSP on the feet. GSP has great takedown defense. He has a better blast double than Khabib. He's a really good wrestler, really good grappler, even if he gets to the ground. And he's a little bit bigger, probably, naturally. He's very long as well, 76-inch reach. It'd be a tough fight for Khabib. Tony, though, being longer, actually having more power than Khabib on the feet, probably more variety, better striker overall. He throws a lot more things on the feet than even GSP does, and he's a great scrambler. I see a GSP holding down Tony, but if you look at the Bisping fight, Bisping cut up GSP from the bottom with elbows. Nobody does that better than Tony Ferguson. Nobody. GSP was doing better in the stand-up against Michael Bisping than when he took him to the ground. When he took him to the ground, he was actually getting hurt. Same thing can happen when he fights Tony Ferguson, but at a larger degree. So 100% Tony's a much harder fight for GSP than Khabib is. And how would Gegard Mousasi do against Adesanya? Gegard is a weird guy, man, because sometimes he shows up and sometimes he doesn't. It's weird. When he shows up, he's one of the best fighters on the planet. When he doesn't show up, he just kind of shies away. Like, he doesn't do anything. I don't know what it is. I really don't know. So if the best version of Gegard shows up against Adesanya, it will be a pretty dangerous fight. But I ultimately see Adesanya picking him apart from a distance and outpointing him. And then we go to Mauro Medrado. If GSP were to come back and fight in lightweight today, which fighters in the top 10 would be the favorites against him and why? None of them would. The only guy that might be a favorite is Khabib just because he's a champion and just because he's so dominant. And even if he is, it's going to be like a minus 130, 140 favorite, something like that. Nobody else will be a favorite. Even if Tony defeats Khabib, I don't think he'll be a favorite. And the reason for that is GSP is just that good. That's just what it is. He's just that good. He's so good that he can make Khabib and Tony be an underdog against him. Coming back from the sport, 3 years later? And especially because after he came back to fight Michael Bisping, he took that long time off. He beat Michael Bisping at a higher weight class and actually finished him, which is something that GSP doesn't really do. GSP barely finishes anybody, especially a prime GSP. So we know that he could come back from a long layoff and show up really nice and really sharp. There's going to be very little doubt that GSP will not show up strong. That will also play into him being a favorite. And then we go to the Twitter questions. We're going to start with @ChrisDTroll. Do fight fans, boxing and MMA fans, miss out by always focusing on who is the greatest of all time? Some of the best fights from all eras are not champion level. Yes, but greatness is what always is going to be a focus for everything, not just fighting and sports, but everything, right? But the difference with fighting is fights itself is an entirely different category than fighters, right? There's a category for the greatest fights. And sometimes, right, like you said, the best fights are not between two of the best fighters. Diego Sanchez versus Gilbert Melendez was a wild fight. It was a fight that a lot of people will remember. It's a fight that a lot of casual fans would really enjoy to watch. Not the greatest fighters, really good fight. You also have Yancy Medeiros versus Alex Oliveira. I was personally there in attendance for it. Everybody stood up when that fight ended. Two guys more looked at as journeymen of the sport, put on one of the best fights of all time in my opinion. I'm recommending right now. It's a fight all of you guys should watch again. It was bonkers crazy. I tweeted out that Shane Burgos versus Kelvin Kattar, in my opinion, one of the best fights I've ever seen, but they were very young. People will say in the future they're going to be top talent, but when they fought each other, they weren't. They were prospects of the sport, more so green fighters when it comes to experience. Man, they put on a show for everybody. So yes, you're 100% right. We're probably a little bit too focused on who is the greatest of all time. For example, I talk about it all the time. Cards that don't have those greatest fighters on it, don't have the name value, they tend to be the most exciting cards. Look at Jon Jones, right? Jon Jones, for example, is one of the greatest fighters of all time when you look at his skill. Most people, most fans of the sport will say that Jon Jones is one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. But let's be honest, most of his fights are not that fun to watch. GSP, greatest fighter of all time, not the most exciting fighter to watch. But then you look at like Mike Perry, right? Mike Perry, so fun to watch. Nico Price, so fun to watch. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, John Lineker. These guys are really fun to watch and always put on amazing fights, but they're just not the greatest of all time. So a lot of people just don't know them. Then we go to @TreadStone, 3 E's at the end. Kevin Lee mentioned taking a few years off after his loss. At 27 years old, say he takes 3 years off to master his skills with Firas Zahabi and GSP, could we realistically see a better Kevin Lee down the road? How would the light welterweight division look when he returns? Interesting question. So he did say he's going to take time off, but it looked like more of a quitting thing. Not quitting, but like, man, things are not going the way I want. Moving to the Firas Zahabi camp just didn't work out. I don't know what to do. I'm going to take time off from the sport and just think about things. That's what it seems like he's doing. Not necessarily, I'm going to go to the gym and work harder, you know? That's just not what I got from Kevin Lee. Part of me thinks that Kevin Lee regrets or thinks that even going for Firas Zahabi is not going to fix him. That's what it seems like. Hopefully, he trains more. 3 years. He's barely been with Firas. This is his second fight, and he fought Charles Oliveira, who might even... What if he becomes champion? And let's just say, he can possibly beat Khabib, right? He would have a good fight with Tony Ferguson. So if he goes and loses Charles Oliveira, and let's say Oliveira becomes champion, this loss looks like nothing. It's like, oh, you lost to one of the best fighters, man. No reason to hang your head down for that. You've been barely training with Firas Zahabi. Train more. Train 3 years. So let's say he trains 3 years, and he takes it seriously, very focused on getting better, listens to the coach, and gets better as a community, learns from GSP, and changes his style a little bit. Yeah, we will definitely see a better Kevin Lee, but I just don't see him ever becoming champion, to be honest, or even being like a top 3 fighter. And how will the divisions look from 3 years from now? Well, I think Khabib and Tony retire. Conor McGregor might be out of the picture. Usman will have lost, but I think he loses later, like 2 years from now. I think Jorge Masvidal retires. Damian Maia is out of the picture. Stephen Thompson retires. Tyron Woodley probably retires. I could see the champion of the lightweight division being like a Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev figure. The champion of the welterweight division is really hard to say 3 years from now. I see that belt changing hands a lot. Like, I don't see a dominant champion for a while there. But with all the fighters retiring, I see a lot of talent. Like, a lot of new guys coming in. Welterweight and lightweight breeds the most fighters in MMA. Most people naturally would fight between 170 and 145. So there'll be a lot of talent. So that's the end of the podcast, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And if you did, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're listening to the audio version of this. And I did get a new PC. So thank you to my patrons. Thank you to Patreon. I was able to finally get a PC, a really good one that's not going to give me any problems. Videos are probably going to come up quicker now, and I might be able to actually stream because my other computer is a bit old. I don't think it can handle streaming that well, but this one should have no problem. So my next podcast, which will be next week, possibly stream it, possibly live stream it. So be looking for that. I will keep you guys updated and stuff, and I'll see you guys then.